Emma Clark had always been fascinated by Japan, not the anime and manga version that her friends obsessed over, but the real Japan. The ancient temples coexisting with neon skyscrapers, the meticulous attention to detail in everything from food to architecture, the concept of omotenashi, hospitality raised to an art form. So when her university in Melbourne offered a semester abroad program in Tokyo, she jumped at the chance without hesitation. This was her moment to escape the predictable path everyone expected her to follow. She was 23, a business major with dreams of working in international trade. Japan seemed like the perfect place to gain experience, to challenge herself, to step outside the comfortable bubble of suburban Australian life where she had grown up with her parents and younger sister Sophie. Her friends were all settling into corporate jobs in Melbourne, buying investment properties, talking about engagement rings. Emma wanted something different, something that felt significant, something that would prove she was more than just another middle-class Australian girl following the script. The program placed her at a prestigious Tokyo university, where she would study Japanese business culture while improving her language skills. She arrived in September, just as the brutal summer heat was finally breaking into a crisp autumn. Tokyo overwhelmed her immediately, the crowds moving in synchronized waves through Shinjuku Station, the efficiency of the train system where delays were measured in seconds, not minutes, the unspoken rules everyone seemed to understand except her, which side of the escalator to stand on, how to properly hand over money at convenience stores, when to bow and how deeply. But she was determined to adapt, to learn, to prove she could handle anything this city threw at her. That is where she met Hiroshi Tanaka. He was a lecturer at the university, teaching a course on Japanese corporate culture that Emma had enrolled in specifically because it fulfilled multiple requirements. He was 32, 9 years older than her, with wire-rimmed glasses and a quiet, serious demeanor that made him seem older than his years. His English was impeccable, his lectures fascinating. He spoke about the salaryman culture with both respect and subtle criticism, about lifetime employment systems that were beginning to crack under modern economic pressures, about the concept of gamen, endurance, the Japanese virtue of persevering through hardship without complaint, about karoshi, death from overwork, spoken of with the same clinical tone one might use to discuss the weather. Emma found herself staying after class to ask questions. At first, they were purely academic. What did he think about the changing work culture in Japan? How did younger generations feel about the traditional system? Was there really a future for companies that expected employees to sacrifice their entire lives? But slowly, inevitably, the conversations became more personal. He asked about Australia, about her family, about what brought her to Japan. She asked about his life, his research, whether he believed in the systems he taught about. Hiroshi was different from the Australian men Emma had dated. He was reserved, thoughtful, careful with his words in a way that made each sentence feel considered. He did not try to impress her with bravado or humor. Instead, he listened intently when she spoke, asked thoughtful questions, seemed genuinely interested in her perspective in a way that felt rare and valuable. When she talked about feeling lost in her career path, unsure if business was really her passion, he did not offer quick solutions or empty reassurances. He simply listened, then shared his own struggles with choosing academia over a lucrative corporate position his family had expected him to take. 3 months into the semester, Hiroshi asked if she would like to have coffee with him. Outside of class, he clarified carefully. As friends, not teacher and student. Emma said yes immediately, her heart beating faster than it should for just friends. She spent an hour getting ready, changing outfits 3 times, telling herself it did not matter what she wore because it was just coffee, just conversation, just 2 people who happened to enjoy talking to each other. They started meeting regularly at a small kissaten near campus, an old-fashioned coffee shop where the owner roasted beans by hand and served coffee in delicate porcelain cups. Then quiet izakayas in neighborhoods far from the university, where they were less likely to run into students or colleagues. Walks through Tokyo's parks where autumn leaves turned the ground into carpets of red and gold. Hiroshi showed her the Tokyo tourists never saw. Small neighborhood shrines tucked between modern buildings. Hole-in-the-wall ramen shops where the owner recognized regulars and knew their orders by heart. Bookstores crammed floor to ceiling with literature, the smell of old paper and possibility. He was a perfect guide, patient with her limited Japanese, explaining cultural nuances she never would have understood on her own. Emma fell for him slowly, then all at once. The way he held doors open for her, a gesture that seemed old-fashioned but sincere. The way he remembered tiny details she mentioned in passing weeks later. The way he looked at her sometimes when he thought she was not watching, like she was something rare and precious. She had never felt so seen, so valued, so interesting. Australian men her age had always made her feel like she was trying too hard, thinking too much, wanting too much. Hiroshi made her feel like enough was not even a concept that needed to exist between them. It took him 2 months to kiss her, and when he finally did, Emma understood why he had waited. They were standing on a bridge overlooking the Sumida River. The Tokyo sky tree lit up in the distance like something from a science fiction film. He had been quiet all evening, and Emma thought maybe she had done something wrong, misread the signals, embarrassed herself by wanting something he did not want. Then he turned to her and said, in that careful, measured way of his, "Emma-san, I need to tell you something. I have developed feelings for you. This is very unprofessional of me. I am your lecturer, though the semester is nearly over. But I cannot help it. You are intelligent, kind, curious. You make me want to show you all the beautiful things about my country. I would like to, if you are willing, to date you. Properly." Emma did not answer with words. She kissed him, right there on the bridge, breaking every rule of Japanese public behavior she had learned. She felt him stiffen for a moment, shocked. Then he kissed her back, tentative at first, then with a passion that surprised her. His hands cupped her face gently, like she might break. "Yes," she said, when they finally pulled apart, both of them breathing hard. "Yes, I want that too. I have wanted that for weeks." He smiled then, that rare, beautiful smile that transformed his serious face. "I am glad. I was afraid you would say no." The next 6 months were the happiest of Emma's life, or at least the happiest she had been since childhood, when happiness was simple and uncomplicated. Her semester ended in December, but she found reasons to stay. She took a part-time job teaching English at a language school, barely making enough to cover rent, but it did not matter. She moved out of the university dormitory into a tiny apartment in Nakano, a neighborhood that felt more residential, more real than the tourist areas. Hiroshi helped her move, carried boxes up 3 flights of stairs without complaint, showed her where to buy groceries, how to sort her garbage according to Tokyo's bewilderingly complex recycling system, which convenience store had the best onigiri at 3 in the morning. They settled into a rhythm that felt like domesticity, without the weight of actual commitment. He would work long hours at the university, often staying until 9 or 10 at night for faculty meetings or student consultations. She would teach her classes in the evening, then wait for him at his apartment or hers. They would eat dinner together, usually something simple she had learned to cook from YouTube videos or take out from the convenience store. They would talk about their days, watch Japanese dramas that Emma was beginning to understand without subtitles, make love quietly, intensely, conscious of the thin walls that seemed to be made of paper. It was comfortable in a way Emma had never experienced. It was real. It was everything she thought she wanted, everything she thought a relationship should feel like. No drama, no games, just 2 people who genuinely enjoyed being together. Hiroshi introduced her to his close friends, a small group of university colleagues who met occasionally for drinks and dinner. They were kind and welcoming, treated her like one of them rather than Hiroshi's foreign girlfriend. They included her in their conversations, complimented her Japanese even when she made obvious mistakes, asked genuine questions about Australia, and seemed interested in her answers. With them, Emma felt accepted in a way she rarely felt in Tokyo's broader society, where she was always gaijin, always foreign, always slightly outside. But Hiroshi did not introduce her to his family. 3 months into their relationship, Emma began to notice this absence. When she asked why, he became evasive in a way that was unlike his usual directness. "My family is very traditional," he said one evening while they were cooking together in his kitchen. "They have certain expectations about who I should marry. I need to prepare them properly before introducing you." "What kind of expectations?" Emma asked, slicing vegetables with more force than necessary. He looked uncomfortable, a rarity for him. In Japanese families, especially families like mine, there are rules about marriage, about who is appropriate. My mother in particular, she has very strong opinions about these things. Am I not appropriate? Emma felt her chest tighten. Is it because I am not Japanese? You are wonderful, but you are not Japanese. And to my mother, to my father, to my entire family, that matters. It matters a great deal. More than I wish it did. Emma felt a chill run through her despite the warm kitchen. Are you saying your family will not accept me? I am saying it will take time. I need to handle this carefully. I cannot just spring you on them. They need to be prepared. They need to understand that you are serious, that this is not just some casual thing. But months passed, and Hiroshi never seemed ready to take that step. There was always a reason to wait. His mother was stressed about his grandmother's health. His father was dealing with work problems. His sister was going through a divorce. There was always something more important, more urgent, more worthy of consideration than introducing Emma to the people who had raised him. 6 months into their relationship, Emma's visa situation became urgent. She either needed to leave Japan or find a way to stay longer term. Her tourist visa had long since expired, technically making her presence illegal. The language school was willing to sponsor a work visa, but the process would take months and required her to leave the country first, then re-enter. Hiroshi suggested an alternative that both excited and terrified Emma. If we get married, you can get a spouse visa, he said one evening over dinner at a small restaurant near his apartment. The words came out casual, as if he were suggesting they try a new coffee shop, rather than proposing they permanently intertwine their lives. You could stay in Japan permanently. We could build a real life together. No more visa concerns, no more uncertainty. Emma's heart soared despite her confusion. Are you proposing? Because if you are, this is possibly the least romantic proposal in the history of proposals. We are eating curry, and you just mentioned marriage, like you were discussing the weather. He smiled, that rare, gentle smile that made her fall in love with him all over again. I suppose I am proposing, though perhaps not in the way you imagined. I do not have a ring. I did not plan some elaborate gesture. But yes, Emma Clark, will you marry me? She should have asked more questions. Should have demanded to meet his family first. Should have insisted on a longer engagement. More time to be sure. More certainty about what she was committing to. But she was 24 years old, in love for the first time in her life, living in a foreign country that made her feel both lost and found simultaneously. Yes, she said. Yes, I will marry you. They got married at the ward office in Nakano 3 weeks later. A simple civil ceremony with just 2 witnesses, colleagues of Hiroshi's from the university who Emma had met perhaps twice before. No family on either side, no celebration, no white dress or wedding cake or first dance, just paperwork and stamps and official documents in Japanese that Emma could barely read. The entire process took less than 30 minutes. We will have a proper ceremony later, Hiroshi promised as they walked out of the government building into the cold February air, newly married and slightly dazed. Once I have told my family. Once things are settled. We can have a party, invite everyone, do it properly. But Emma did not care about a ceremony. She was married to the man she loved. She could stay in Japan legally. Everything else, she told herself, would work itself out. Everything did not work itself out. The problem started small enough that Emma initially dismissed them as normal adjustment issues. After the marriage, Hiroshi became even busier with work than before. He was up for promotion to associate professor, a significant step in Japanese academia that came with increased responsibilities, more meetings, more expectations. Emma understood this intellectually. She knew Japanese work culture was demanding from his lectures, from her own observations. She had been warned. But understanding something academically and living it in your marriage were two entirely different experiences. Hiroshi would leave for work at 7 in the morning, sometimes earlier, and return at 11 at night, sometimes midnight. Some nights he would not come home at all, sending a brief message that he was sleeping at the office or at a capsule hotel near campus because he had early morning obligations and the commute was too long. Emma tried to be understanding, tried to be supportive, tried to be the kind of wife she thought he needed. On weekends, when Emma hoped desperately they could spend time together like they used to, do normal couple things, he was exhausted. He would sleep until noon, his body finally catching up on the sleep deprivation accumulated through the week. Then spend the afternoon preparing for the next week's lectures, grading papers, responding to emails that never seemed to stop coming. Emma would try to plan activities, suggest going out to the neighborhoods they used to explore together. But he was always too tired. Always one more thing he needed to finish. Always next weekend, which somehow never arrived. "I am sorry," he would say every time, and she could see the genuine regret in his eyes. "Just give me a few more months. Once I get this promotion, things will be better. I promise things will be better." But Emma was beginning to wonder if better ever actually came in Japan, or if it was just something people told themselves to endure the present. Emma also struggled with her own work situation, which was slowly crushing her spirit in ways she had not anticipated. Teaching English at a language school had seemed fine as a temporary solution, a way to make money while figuring out her real path. But the reality was grinding. The pay was terrible, barely covering her share of the rent in the apartment she now shared with Hiroshi. The hours were irregular and exhausting, mostly evenings and weekends when students were available after their own demanding jobs. The other teachers were transient foreigners who stayed a year or two before moving on to other countries, other adventures, other versions of the same rootless existence. She had no real colleagues, no professional development, no career path. She was 25 years old and felt like she was moving backwards while everyone she knew from university was climbing corporate ladders back in Australia. She tried to make friends outside of work, recognizing that her isolation was becoming a problem. She joined a yoga class taught in English for foreigners, where everyone was friendly in that shallow way of people who know they will probably never see each other again. She attended meetup groups for foreigners in Tokyo, enduring awkward conversations about how long people had been in Japan and whether they planned to stay. But the friendships felt temporary, surface level. Everyone was always leaving, returning to their home countries after their 2-year adventure or 3-year contract. No one was building a life in Japan the way Emma was trying to build one. No one understood what it meant to be foreign and married and stuck, and the cultural isolation was crushing her in ways she had not experienced during her semester abroad, when everything was new and exciting. Back then, she had been a student, a temporary visitor, someone passing through who was not expected to truly understand. Now she was supposed to be integrated, supposed to be becoming Japanese in some undefined way. But she felt constantly off balance, constantly wrong, constantly failing at tasks other people managed without visible effort. She did not understand the unspoken rules, the hierarchies, the indirect communication that required her to guess what people actually meant versus what they said. "When you visit someone's home, you should bring a gift," Hiroshi would remind her gently after they left a dinner party. Something small but thoughtful, not something cheap or casual. "When someone pours you tea, you should lift the cup slightly as a sign of respect and gratitude. Do not just grab it. When someone gives you a business card, you should receive it with both hands and study it carefully before putting it away respectfully. It represents them. Treating it carelessly is treating them carelessly." So many rules. So many ways to fail. So many opportunities to embarrass herself and, by extension, embarrass Hiroshi. The weight of it was exhausting. Hiroshi's family remained a mystery, a source of growing anxiety that sat between them like something physical. He still had not told them about the marriage. Every time Emma brought it up, he had a new reason to wait. His mother had been sick with a respiratory infection. His father was stressed about his brother's business failing. His sister was having problems with her ex-husband over custody arrangements. There was always a reason, always something more important than acknowledging that her son had married a foreign woman. "You are ashamed of me," Emma said one night after he had canceled yet another promised visit to his parents' home. They had planned it for weeks, and then 2 hours before they were supposed to leave, Hiroshi claimed his mother had called to say she was not feeling well. The disappointment and suspicion in Emma's voice was impossible to hide. "No," he said firmly, but she saw something flicker in his eyes that might have been guilt. "I am not ashamed. I am being strategic. My family is complicated. Japanese families are complicated in ways that Australian families are not. I need to handle this the right way or there will be problems. Serious problems. It has been over a year, Hiroshi. We have been married for 10 months. How much longer are you going to hide me like I am something you are embarrassed about?" He did not answer. He just looked at her with those sad eyes and she knew the truth. He was not ready. He might never be ready. And she was trapped. The turning point came when Emma discovered she was pregnant. She was 25. They had been married for 18 months, living together for over 2 years. She had been occasionally careless with birth control, part of her hoping that a baby would force Hiroshi to finally tell his family, to integrate her properly into his world, to make their relationship feel real and permanent rather than this strange limbo they existed in. When she saw the positive pregnancy test, she felt a rush of conflicting emotions: fear, joy, hope, dread. She sat on the bathroom floor of their tiny apartment for 20 minutes, staring at the 2 pink lines, trying to imagine what came next. When she told Hiroshi that evening, his face went completely pale. He sat down heavily on their small couch, put his head in his hands, and said nothing for a full minute. "Are you sure?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She showed him the test, then the second test she had taken to be certain, then the third test because she could not quite believe it herself. "I am sure. 3 tests. All positive." He looked up at her, and she saw something she had never seen in his face before. Not joy, not excitement, but what looked like fear. "This complicates things significantly." "Complicates things?" Emma felt anger rising in her chest, hot and sudden. "Hiroshi, we are married. Having a baby is a natural next step. How is this a complication? But my family does not know about you yet. How can I tell them I have a foreign wife and that she is pregnant with their grandchild? They will feel betrayed. They will feel like I deliberately kept this from them, which I have, but they will not understand why. My mother will be devastated." "Then you figure it out," Emma snapped, her voice rising despite her attempt to stay calm. "Because this baby is coming whether your family knows about me or not. You have been saying you would tell them for over a year. You do not get to hide me anymore. You do not get to pretend I do not exist while I am carrying your child." "You are right," he said quietly, and for the first time she saw what might have been shame in his expression. "You are absolutely right. I will talk to them. This weekend. I promise." But the weekend came and went without any conversation. Then another weekend, then another. Each time Hiroshi had a reason. The timing was not right. His mother was not in a good mood. His father was traveling for work. The excuses piled up, and Emma's belly began to show despite her attempts to hide it under loose clothing. Finally, 3 months into her pregnancy, Hiroshi came home one evening and announced without preamble that they were going to meet his family the following Sunday. No more delays, no more excuses. He had told his parents that evening over the phone that he had something important to discuss with them. He had not told them what, but they knew something significant was coming. That Sunday was one of the worst days of Emma's life, a day she would remember with perfect clarity years later when trying to explain to therapists what had broken inside her. Hiroshi's parents lived in Saitama, just outside Tokyo, in a traditional Japanese house that had belonged to his grandparents. Tatami mat floors that required them to remove their shoes at the entrance. Sliding shoji doors that offered no real privacy. The smell of incense and green tea and something else Emma could not identify, something that seemed like the physical manifestation of tradition and expectation. Hiroshi's mother, Keiko Tanaka, was a small, severe woman in her mid-60s. She wore a traditional kimono even at home, her gray-streaked black hair pulled into a neat bun. Her expression when she saw Emma was not welcoming. It was not even neutral. It was something closer to horror, poorly disguised as polite interest. His father, Takeshi Tanaka, was taller, retired from a 30-year career at a major electronics company. His handshake was firm, his expression carefully blank in that way Japanese men had perfected, revealing nothing. His younger sister Yuki was recently divorced and living back home with her young son. She was in her late 20s, wearing casual Western-style clothes, and she looked at Emma with open hostility that she did not even attempt to hide. The meeting was a disaster from the very beginning. Keiko barely acknowledged Emma, speaking exclusively in rapid Japanese to Hiroshi, even when Emma was standing right there. Hiroshi translated some of it, but Emma could tell he was softening his mother's words, making them palatable when they were clearly anything but. "She says welcome to our home," he would say. But Emma could hear the coldness in Keiko's tone, could see the disapproval in every line of her face. "She says she hopes you're comfortable," but Emma could see she hoped nothing of the sort. Takeshi was polite but distant, asking Emma perfunctory questions in broken English about her education, her family back in Australia. Emma answered as honestly and respectfully as she could, feeling like she was on trial for a crime she did not understand. Yuki was openly hostile, making comments in rapid Japanese that Hiroshi refused to translate, which probably meant they were worse than anything he wanted Emma to hear. When her young son, a shy 4-year-old named Ren, approached Emma with curiosity, Yuki pulled him back sharply and spoke to him harshly in Japanese. The boy looked at Emma with wide, frightened eyes and did not approach again. During dinner, which was traditional Japanese food served with exquisite care and precision, Keiko interrogated Emma through Hiroshi. The questions came rapid fire, barely giving Emma time to answer before the next one came. What was her education? A business degree from a decent but not prestigious university. What was her family background? Middle class? Nothing special? No connections? What were her plans for the future? She had not thought that far ahead. Did she intend to work after the baby was born? She did not know. Could she cook Japanese food? Not well. Did she understand Japanese customs regarding child rearing? Not really. Every answer seemed to be the wrong answer. Another mark against her in some invisible ledger Keiko was keeping. After dinner, Hiroshi and his father went outside to talk privately. Emma could hear raised voices through the thin walls. Takeshi's normally calm voice elevated with anger or disappointment or both. Keiko and Yuki cleaned up the dishes, pointedly not including Emma in the work or showing her where things went. Emma sat at the table with her hands folded in her lap, feeling like an intruder in a home where she would never be welcome. When they finally left several hours later, both Emma and Hiroshi were exhausted in a way that went beyond physical tiredness. They sat in silence on the train back to Tokyo, not touching, barely looking at each other. Emma waited until they were home, doors closed, before asking, "What did your father say?" Hiroshi stared out their apartment window at the Tokyo skyline, lights stretching to the horizon. "He is disappointed. He says I have brought shame to the family by marrying a foreigner without their knowledge, without their permission. My mother is even more upset. Devastated is probably more accurate. She had wanted me to marry Yuki's friend, a nice Japanese woman from a good family in Saitama. Apparently there had been discussions, tentative arrangements. Emma felt sick. They had someone picked out for you? It was not formal, but yes, there had been discussions. My mother had hopes, expectations, and I destroyed those by marrying you in secret. Did you know about this before you married me?" Emma's voice was barely above a whisper. He did not answer immediately, which was answer enough. "I want to go home," Emma said quietly. She meant Australia. She meant away from this apartment, this city, this country where she would never belong. "We are home," Hiroshi said, still not looking at her. "No, I mean home. Australia. Where people want me. Where I am not a disappointment or a shame or a problem to be managed." He finally turned to face her, panic visible in his eyes for the first time. You cannot leave. You are carrying my child. Our child. Watch me." But Emma did not leave. Not then. Not yet. Because she was pregnant in a foreign country. Because she was married. Because she had burned bridges back home. Told everyone this was her life now. Because she still loved Hiroshi, despite everything. Because she still believed with irrational stubbornness that they could make this work. So she stayed. And she paid the price in ways she was only beginning to understand. The pregnancy was difficult in every possible way. Emma was sick constantly, exhausted all the time in a bone-deep way that made every day feel like climbing a mountain. Japanese maternity care was thorough but impersonal, focused entirely on medical metrics rather than emotional support. The doctors barely spoke to her, directing all their comments to Hiroshi when he managed to attend appointments, which was rare given his work schedule. Keiko inserted herself into the pregnancy in ways Emma found invasive and controlling. She would call Hiroshi constantly, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day, asking about Emma's health, giving advice about what Emma should eat, how much weight she should gain, what preparations needed to be made for the baby. "She says you should stop working now," Hiroshi would relay after these phone calls. "She says it is not good for the baby for you to be stressed by work responsibilities." Emma was only 5 months pregnant and needed the small income from her English teaching, pitiful as it was. But Keiko was insistent, and Hiroshi was unwilling to stand up to his mother on this or any other issue. "Maybe she is right," he said one evening, not meeting Emma's eyes. "Maybe you should focus on preparing for the baby. Rest is important. I can support us financially." So Emma quit her job. And suddenly she had nothing. No work, no purpose, no identity outside of being Hiroshi's pregnant foreign wife. No money of her own, no independence, no escape route if she needed one. She spent her days alone in their tiny apartment while Hiroshi worked his endless hours. She tried to learn more Japanese by watching television shows, tried to prepare the apartment for a baby they did not have space for, tried to fill the crushing emptiness with online shopping and message boards for expat mothers in Japan. But mostly, she felt like she was drowning, sinking deeper every day into an isolation so complete it felt physical. Keiko started visiting the apartment unannounced, using the spare key Hiroshi had given her without consulting Emma. She would show up in the morning with bags of groceries and traditional Japanese baby supplies. She would rearrange Emma's kitchen, criticize her housekeeping, lecture her about proper Japanese child-rearing techniques that Emma only half understood through Hiroshi's translations. "In Japan, we do not spoil babies by holding them too much," Keiko would say through Hiroshi, her tone brooking no argument. "We believe babies should learn to self-soothe from an early age. In Japan, we introduce solid foods at a specific time in a specific order, following traditional guidelines. In Japan, babies sleep in the same room as their parents until they are at least 3 years old. Sometimes longer. In Japan. Everything was about what happened in Japan, what was proper in Japan, what Emma needed to understand about Japan. Never mind what Emma thought, what Emma wanted, what Emma believed. She was in Japan now. She needed to become Japanese, or at least Japanese enough to not embarrass the family. Emma bit her tongue through all of it. She nodded, she smiled, she tried to implement Keiko's endless advice. She was too tired, too isolated, too dependent on Hiroshi and his family to fight back. She felt herself shrinking, becoming smaller and quieter with each passing day. The baby, a girl, was born in March after a difficult 30-hour labor that left Emma traumatized and exhausted. They named her Sakura, Cherry Blossom, at Keiko's absolute insistence. Emma had wanted to include an Australian name, maybe Rose or Lily or something from her own family, but she was outvoted before the discussion even really began. Keiko presented the name as a decision already made, not a suggestion open for debate. Motherhood was harder than Emma had imagined in her worst nightmares. Sakura was a difficult baby from day one, crying constantly, sleeping poorly, refusing to nurse properly. Emma was exhausted beyond anything she had experienced, hormonal, overwhelmed, drowning in responsibilities she had no idea how to handle. And Hiroshi was absent more than he was present. He had gotten his promotion to associate professor, which meant even more responsibilities, even longer hours, even more reasons why he could not come home. "I am sorry," he would say when he came home late to find Emma in tears with a screaming Sakura in her arms. "I am doing this for us, for our family. This promotion means more money, more stability. Just bear with it a little longer." But it did not feel like they were a family. It felt like Emma was alone, raising a child in a country where she did not belong, supported by a man who was never there, and judged by a mother-in-law who despised everything about her. Keiko came every single day now. She would let herself into the apartment whether Emma wanted her there or not. She would take Sakura from Emma's arms immediately, clucking disapprovingly at everything Emma was doing wrong. The way Emma held her, the way Emma tried to feed her, the clothes Emma dressed her in, the schedule Emma tried to maintain. Everything was wrong, improper, not the Japanese way. You are holding her wrong. Support her head properly. You are feeding her wrong. The formula should be exactly this temperature. You are changing her diaper wrong. The proper technique is like this. You need to do this, not that. This way, not that way. Japanese mothers do it like this. Emma felt like she was failing at everything. She was not a good enough mother, not a good enough wife, not a good enough Japanese daughter-in-law. She was drowning and everyone around her was watching without offering a hand to pull her up. When Sakura was 6 months old, Hiroshi came home with news that broke something fundamental inside Emma. The university was sending him to Osaka for a year, a special research position that would look excellent on his resume, set him up for full professorship when he returned. "That is great," Emma said mechanically, trying to muster enthusiasm she did not feel. "When do we move?" Hiroshi looked uncomfortable in a way that immediately set off alarm bells in Emma's head. "Actually, I was thinking you and Sakura should stay in Tokyo. My mother can help you more easily if you are here. It would be too difficult to move with a young baby, too disruptive. You want to leave us here for a year?" Emma's voice was flat, emotionless. She was past the point of crying about things. "It is not that far. Just a few hours by train. I can visit on weekends when my schedule allows." But Emma knew exactly how this would go. He would be too busy to visit regularly. She would be even more alone, even more dependent on Keiko, even more trapped. She would be raising their daughter essentially as a single mother while Hiroshi advanced his career in another city. "I want to come with you," Emma said, hearing the desperation in her own voice. "Emma, be reasonable. This is a great opportunity for my career, for our future. You need to think about what is best for our family. What about what I want? What about what I need?" Emma's voice was rising despite her efforts to stay calm. "When do I get to matter in this equation?" "What do you want?" he asked. And there was an edge to his voice she had never heard before. An irritation, an impatience, a suggestion that she was being unreasonable. "I want to matter. I want to be more than just your foreign wife and your baby's mother. I want a career, friends, a life. I want to feel like I exist as a person, not just as an extension of you and your family. You do exist. You are a mother. That is important. That is valuable. You need to appreciate what you have instead of always wanting more." That response, more than anything else, showed Emma how completely he did not understand. How invisible she had become even to him. Hiroshi moved to Osaka in September. He came back twice a month, sometimes less, on Sundays when he could spare the time. Staying just long enough to see Sakura, have dinner, sleep, and leave again early Monday morning for the train back to his new life. Emma felt like she was raising their daughter completely alone, which was essentially true. Keiko became even more involved, more controlling, more omnipresent. She would come to the apartment every morning without fail, let herself in with her key before Emma was even properly awake. She would stay until evening, cooking, cleaning, taking care of Sakura while making Emma feel completely incompetent and useless. Emma started having thoughts that scared her. Dark thoughts. Thoughts about how easy it would be to step off the balcony of their fifth-floor apartment, to end the loneliness, the isolation, the suffocating feeling of being trapped in a life she no longer recognized. She would stand on the balcony sometimes late at night when Sakura finally fell asleep, looking down at the street below, and think about how simple it would be. One step. Just one step, and all of this would be over. She knew she needed help. She tried to find a therapist who spoke English, but the waiting list was months long and the cost was prohibitive. She tried calling a mental health hotline listed in an expat guide, but the person on the other end barely spoke English and seemed confused by Emma's situation. She was falling apart, and there was no one to catch her. She called her mother in Australia one night, crying so hard she could barely form words. "Mum, I cannot do this anymore. I think I am dying inside. I think I am disappearing." Her mother's voice was alarmed, frightened in a way Emma had never heard. "What do you mean, sweetheart? Are you okay? Is the baby okay?" "The baby is fine. Everyone is fine except me. And no one cares that I am not fine because I am not supposed to matter. I am just supposed to exist as Sakura's mother and Hiroshi's wife, and Keiko's disappointing foreign daughter-in-law." "Then come home," her mother said firmly. "Bring Sakura and come home right now. Today. I will buy you tickets." But Emma knew it was not that simple, not that easy. She had no money of her own. She was financially dependent on Hiroshi for everything. And she was terrified of losing Sakura in a custody battle. Japanese courts heavily favored Japanese parents, especially fathers. If Emma tried to leave, if she tried to take Sakura to Australia, Hiroshi could use her mental health struggles against her, paint her as an unfit mother, take their daughter away permanently. So Emma stayed trapped in her prison, drowning slowly while everyone around her pretended not to notice. The breaking point came on Sakura's first birthday. Emma had planned a small celebration, just her and Hiroshi, who was visiting for the weekend, and a couple of Emma's expat acquaintances from an online mothers group. She had baked a cake from scratch using a recipe from home, decorated the apartment with balloons and streamers, been excited for the first time in months to do something normal and happy. Keiko showed up unannounced with Takeshi, Yuki and Yuki's son, plus several neighbors Emma barely knew. She had also invited extended family members. She completely took over, transforming Emma's intimate gathering into a traditional Japanese celebration that Emma had neither planned for nor wanted. Keiko criticized Emma's homemade cake, saying it was too sweet and not appropriate for a 1-year-old child. She rearranged all the food Emma had prepared. She directed the entire party as if Emma did not exist, leaving Emma to stand awkwardly to the side like a guest at her own daughter's birthday celebration. Emma waited until everyone had left before confronting Hiroshi. "Why did you let her do that? Why do you always let her do whatever she wants?" "Do what?" He genuinely seemed confused. "Take over our daughter's birthday. Make me feel like I do not matter in my own home and my own life." She was just trying to help. She wanted Sakura to have a proper Japanese first birthday celebration. "You should be grateful she cares so much." "Grateful?" Emma's voice was rising, all her suppressed anger finally breaking through. "I should be grateful that your mother treats me like I am invisible, that she takes over everything in my life, that you never, not once, stand up for me or set any boundaries with her. You are being dramatic and unreasonable. My mother has done so much for us. She helps with Sakura every day. She cooks, she cleans, she teaches you how to be a good Japanese mother. I did not ask for her help. I did not ask to be made to feel incompetent in my own life. I did not ask for any of this." "Then maybe you should try harder," Hiroshi said, his voice cold in a way she had never heard. "Maybe if you made more of an effort to fit in, to understand our culture, to be a proper Japanese wife and mother, my mother would not feel like she needs to supervise everything you do." The words hit Emma like a physical blow. A proper Japanese wife. That was what this had always been about. Hiroshi had not married her because he loved the real Emma, the Australian Emma, the independent and confident Emma. He had married her despite who she was, always hoping she would transform into someone else. Someone quiet, obedient, selfless. Someone who would disappear completely into his life without complaint or resistance. "I am done," Emma said quietly, with absolute finality. "I am completely done." "Done with what?" "Done trying to be someone I am not. Done sacrificing everything while you sacrifice nothing." Done living in a prison while pretending it is a marriage. Done disappearing. Emma, you are being irrational, you are overtired. Let us talk about this tomorrow when you are calmer. No. For the first time in 2 years, I am being completely rational. This is not a life. This is not love. This is me slowly dying while you stand by and watch without caring enough to try to save me. What do you want from me? His voice was frustrated, angry, confused. I want you to choose me. Really choose me for once. Tell your mother she needs to back off and respect boundaries. Move back to Tokyo. Be an actual father and husband instead of a ghost who visits twice a month. Fight for this marriage the way I have been fighting for it alone. He looked at her and Emma saw the truth in his eyes. He was not going to do any of those things. His career came first. His mother came first. His culture came first. His comfort came first. Emma would always be last. I need time to think, he said, which they both knew meant no. That conversation was 3 months ago. Hiroshi is still in Osaka, still visiting occasionally when work allows. Keiko still comes to the apartment every day, still controlling everything. Emma is still trapped, still drowning, still desperately trying to figure out how to escape without losing her daughter. She has been secretly saving money, hiding small amounts from the household budget Hiroshi gives her. She has been researching international custody laws, talking to lawyers discreetly, learning her options. She has been planning her escape with the careful attention of someone planning a prison break, because that is essentially what it is. Because Emma has finally accepted what she should have known from the beginning. This marriage is over. It was probably never really a marriage at all. It was Emma giving up everything and Hiroshi accepting it as his due, as what wives do, as perfectly normal and appropriate. She does not know exactly how the story ends yet, whether she will find the courage to leave, whether she will win custody of Sakura, whether she will ever be able to rebuild the life and identity she gave up. But she knows with absolute certainty that she cannot stay. She knows that if she stays much longer, she will lose herself completely and permanently. And Sakura deserves a mother who is whole, a mother who is herself, a mother who is not a ghost haunting her own life. The decision crystallized on a cold February morning. Emma woke up to find Keiko already in the apartment, having let herself in while Emma was sleeping. She was feeding Sakura breakfast, changing her diaper, singing to her in Japanese. And Sakura, who was almost 18 months old now, called her Oba-chan, grandmother. When Emma walked into the room, Sakura barely looked at her, too focused on Keiko. Emma felt something fundamental crack inside her. She was losing her daughter, not through court orders or legal battles, but through slow daily erosion. Sakura was becoming Japanese in ways Emma could never be, and Keiko was making absolutely certain of it. That afternoon, after Keiko left, Emma made 3 phone calls that would change everything. The first was to her mother in Australia. The second was to the lawyer she had been consulting secretly for months. The third was to the Australian embassy in Tokyo. 2 weeks later, Emma sat down with Hiroshi during one of his weekend visits. She had asked him to come early, before Keiko could insert herself into the conversation as she always did. I am taking Sakura and going back to Australia, Emma said without preamble, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. Hiroshi's face went completely white. You cannot do that. You cannot just take my daughter to another country. I can and I will. I have consulted lawyers. I have every right to take my daughter to visit my home country. And once we are there, I am filing for divorce and custody arrangements. I will fight you. Japanese courts will side with me. They always side with Japanese parents. Maybe they will. But I am not going to stay here and watch your mother raise our daughter while I fade into complete non-existence. I am not going to teach Sakura that it is okay to be invisible, to sacrifice everything, to accept being treated like you do not matter. I never treated you like you do not matter, Hiroshi said, but even he did not sound convinced. You did. You do. Every single day, by letting your mother control our entire lives, by prioritizing your career over our family, by expecting me to become someone else instead of loving who I actually am, by never once standing up for me when it actually mattered. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. What about Sakura? She deserves to know her father. She deserves to grow up with both parents. And she will. We will work out custody arrangements. You can visit. She can visit. But I'm not going to let her grow up thinking this is what marriage looks like. This is what love looks like. This is what women are supposed to accept. Hiroshi looked at her, and for the first time, Emma saw not anger, but resignation. You have changed, he said quietly. Yes, Emma said. I had to. Because the woman who came to Japan 5 years ago, full of hope and love and naive belief that she could make anything work through sheer determination, that woman almost died here, and I am choosing to save what is left of her before it is too late. In March, Emma and Sakura flew back to Melbourne. Hiroshi did not try to stop them physically, though he threatened legal action that never materialized. His mother was the one who made the biggest scene, crying and screaming and calling Emma terrible things in Japanese that Emma was finally fluent enough to fully understand. But it no longer mattered. Emma was done caring what Keiko thought. The divorce took 14 months. It was ugly, expensive, complicated by international law and cultural differences, and 2 legal systems that did not easily communicate. But Emma had done her research, had documented everything meticulously, had prepared for every argument. In the end, they agreed to shared custody with compromises on both sides. Sakura would spend the school year in Australia with Emma, and summers plus holidays in Japan with Hiroshi. It was not perfect, not ideal, but it was fair, and it gave Emma back her life. Now, 2 years after leaving Japan, Emma is slowly rebuilding herself from the ground up. She got a job at a consulting firm in Melbourne, using her business degree and her unique understanding of Japanese corporate culture. She has her own apartment near her parents who help with Sakura. She has started seeing a therapist weekly, working through the trauma of those years in Tokyo. She has started dating again, cautiously, learning to trust her own judgment again. Most importantly, she has learned to recognize red flags she ignored before. Partners who expect you to do all the compromising. Families who treat you like an outsider who needs to earn acceptance. Cultural differences used as excuses for control and disrespect. She has learned that love should not require you to disappear, should not cost you your identity, should not make you smaller and quieter, and less yourself. She does not regret going to Japan. She does not regret loving Hiroshi. Those experiences, painful as they were, taught her who she is and what she will and will not accept. But she deeply regrets not leaving sooner, not trusting her instincts when they screamed that something was wrong, not valuing herself enough to demand better treatment. Sakura is adjusting remarkably well, speaking both English and Japanese fluently, comfortable in both cultures in ways Emma never managed to be. She video calls with Hiroshi weekly and seems genuinely happy to see him, which Emma encourages despite her own complicated feelings. Whatever happened between the adults, Sakura deserves to know and love both her parents. Emma has learned that the most important relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. And no marriage, no matter how much you love the person, no matter how hard you try to make it work, is worth losing that fundamental relationship. Emma learned that some doors lock behind you, but locked doors can be broken with enough courage and the right help. If you have felt invisible in your relationship or trapped by cultural expectations, share your story in the comments. Hit that like button if this made you think about your own situation. And subscribe for more real stories about intercultural marriage. What culture should we explore next?